Yes, I have.
Have you had enough time to discuss this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorneys represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
I must say that the attorneys on both sides of this case have been excellent, unbelievable lawyers. Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a charge, that is the same as if you had gone to trial and been found guilty of that charge?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're waiving a number of very important rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Carolyn, we interrupted you earlier because we had to go to a press conference, but continue telling us what you were telling us.
Yeah, absolutely. What you just heard, Rex Heuermann's tone, his confident voice, that's exactly what continued for the next half hour. That was pretty extraordinary as we're talking about, diabolical crimes. He was just very matter of fact. It was very rapid fire questioning by the prosecutor. District Attorney Ray Tierney himself started questioning under oath Rex Heuermann and asking him specifics about each crime, about each of the victims. And to each question, he asked, did you murder this victim by name? And he would answer yes. And what was the means? What was the manner of the and their heads remains in a manner that would be concealed along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. So those were really the only details. And while these details were spoken in the packed courtroom, family members of the victims, you could see wiping away tears. It was very emotional. So even though it was very mechanical for Rex Heuermann and the district attorney, how quickly it all went, it was really such an incredible moment to have these details and a confession that, some people thought we would never have. And in the end, the only thing really that the prosecution conceded, because there's certainly no time that this was not a plea deal in the sense that there'll be any shorter sentence, but that there'll be no further prosecution in any of these 8 cases. And as you heard, that Rex Heuermann has also agreed to cooperate with the FBI's behavioral science team. They'll study him to learn, what makes a person do these awful things. And really an incredible day for me and for Jennifer McLogan. We've both been covering this literally for decades.
And our shock the first day when he was arrested up till when the shock again when we find out he's pleading guilty.
Right. Never expected. And, it's interesting. The questions will linger as to why he did it. But his attorney just spoke about, wanting to spare the details for himself and his family.
Correct. It's been a very dramatic day here. We're saying it's a huge case. It has haunted Long Island for so long, since the bodies of the first so-called Gilgo 4 were discovered in Ocean Parkway 2010, buried in those shallow graves. And of course, on the 4th floor of this courthouse behind us, Rex Heuermann finally giving some resolution, admitting to 7 and then 8 of these victims. He walked in, he entered the courtroom. As you heard him speak a moment ago, he spoke confidently. It was chilling, and we have some videotape now that we want to share with you.
Until now, 62-year-old Rex Heuermann had publicly denied any involvement in the killings. A trial was expected to begin in September, facing life without parole if convicted. But something changed since he's been in a solitary jail cell. Was it sparing his own family? Was it his conscience, his health, getting out of solitary confinement? We hope to learn some answers in the hours to come. Nabbed in July of 2023 outside his Manhattan architectural consulting business, his shocking arrest, and the gruesome, sadistic details of a serial killer quickly became worldwide news.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator that ruined families.
Based on a tip of a unique vehicle linked to Heuermann, the Gilgo Beach Homicide Task Force tracked his cell and burner phones, used advanced DNA testing from a leftover pizza crust, and hair strands found on multiple victims' bodies buried from Gilgo Beach to the East End. A planning document for how best to kill and evade detection was found in Heuermann's basement. Heuermann's admitting to all 7 women's murders he was charged with, plus an 8th, Karen Vertaga, that had been unsolved until now. Vertaga, a Manhattan mother of 2, whose remains were found west of Gilgo Beach and on Fire Island more than a decade apart. Attorney John Ray represents victim Valerie Mack's son, who filed a wrongful death lawsuit yesterday, naming Heuermann's ex-wife and daughter, too.
His family knew or should have known what was going on in that basement. These girls were being tortured and slaughtered in his own house, a 1,343.
They're still living in the house as well. I mean, what the hell? He slaughtered so many people there. And it's just so odd that the reaction as well was very telling. It was just, was anybody else stunned by this? It's just absolutely wow.
Square foot house.
The family attorney firing back, calling the claims unfounded, denying Heuermann's daughter and ex-wife had any involvement at all. Prosecutors said murders occurred when...
See Victoria's girlfriend with her there with the black hair. Wonder how much she knows.
The Heuermann family was out of town.
My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Their loss is immeasurable. And the focus should be on them at this time and moment. I ask.
The focus is on them. That's why we want him brought to justice. That's why when we all found him guilty, you were glamorizing the fact that, like, he was this amazing hero in your life. What on earth are you talking about? Nobody's talking about you, but you know where we are on the subject. If you wanted privacy, why'd you do a fucking documentary exposing how much you did know?
That you give some privacy to my family as they navigate through this very difficult time.
We found it really fascinating that the behavioral analysis unit of the FBI is asking and demanding, and he will proceed to speak with them. Rex Heuermann's future, we're finding out now in what prison he will go to. We'll find that out on June 17th.
Right. And part of it also, Jennifer, you know, anybody could speculate about why he did this, but the last almost 3 years for him, he has been in a single cell, almost solitary confinement, 23 hours a day. That will not be the conditions when he goes upstate to prison. You know, that could have played a part as well.
We talked about that too, the loneliness factor or the bragging factor.
Right.
Being a big cheese in that pond.
So he'll be, studied. That's really incredible by the FBI for years to come. I was struck by how matter of fact he just rattled off the guilties in court. One after the other, 7 guilties as the judge asked him, how do you plead, as he changed his plea. And, it sounded like he could have been just in an architecture meeting. I mean, it was really no emotion, confident, loud, and ready to be done with this.
He certainly lived a double life, and if we're to believe the family, they knew absolutely nothing about it. Prosecutors have said they were all out of town when these gruesome murders and tortures took place in the basement of his...
How does anyone possibly know that? I mean, we won't go to trial, so less on the actual... I think he has no claim to be so righteous about it.
He even had a whole manifest written about it. Of course, one lawsuit's been filed yesterday. Will there be more to come against Asa Ellerup and her daughter, because they have money now from the documentaries that they have cooperated in?
Look at him sniggering. He's got no teeth or anything. They want notoriety. They want attention. The best thing we could do is just fucking ignore them. Don't buy anything off them. And don't be so swanned in by them, because they're absolutely full of poison.
interesting that his defense attorney just complimented the prosecutors. You know, if not for the strength of this case, today never would have happened.
And Chris and Cindy, as we throw it back to you, we wanted to also compliment Rodney Harrison, who's part of our team today, because of course it was under his watch, he's being humble, that this whole case began to be solved.
All right, ladies, thank you very much. For Nassau County residents, it's been a long road to the end of this case.
Allie Bauman is getting reaction from Heuermann's Massapequa Park neighborhood. Allie.
Yeah, Cindy and Chris, it's kind of weird to be out here. The last time I was here was just about 3 years ago, right after.
I feel sorry for the family, too, because they weren't even around when he was doing all this. You know, they were on vacations all the time.
And now some neighborhoods out here told us are also hopeful that they'll get their neighborhood back. I mean, for the past 3 years, this has been the center of this case, has been this red home, and it has completely upended this neighborhood that, again, is a quiet, residential, suburban block.
That's a very expensive car. I mean, still living in a home, still got our land in South Carolina under his brother's name.
So some are hopeful that, you know, maybe the news crews stop coming now that he's pleaded guilty. We are now waiting to see if his ex-wife, his daughter, are going to be coming home. We haven't seen them come home yet, but we'll keep you posted. Cindy and Chris.
Right, Allie, thank you very much. Now to break down this case further, we're joined by two experts. Rodney Harrison, the former police commissioner for Suffolk County, who you've heard mentioned a number of times here over the past half hour or so.
And then for legal analysis, we are joined by trial attorney Rich Schoenstein. And Rich, we talked about how the investigation, you know, continues, possibly more victims could be discovered. So what happens with Heuermann when that happens?
Well,
Hi, and welcome back to another Mobile Sunshine. I'm waiting for today for the verdict to come in. Apparently, Rex Heuermann may be pleading not guilty. Guilty. I believe a few civil actions have been put forward towards his family, and I've gathered a few things myself over the time I want to go through and talk about what I actually know so far, how many I suspect he's the East Side Strangler too. I think there's plenty more he could confess to. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for this. So I hope he does be honest today. And stay tuned.
For the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer, Rex Heuermann. He's due to be back in front of a judge today.
He's reportedly going to change his plea. And Good Day's Jessica Formoso is outside of the Suffolk County Court this morning with more and all these details. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning, Tina and Tashani. Rex Heuermann is expected to plead guilty to all 7 murders. We are told Heuermann's family, as well as the families of the victims, are going to be here inside that courtroom. We will also be there as well. Now, just yesterday, we learned about a wrongful death lawsuit filed by one of the victim's son against Heuermann, his ex-wife, and his daughter. Benjamin Torres, the son of Gilgo Beach murder victim Valerie Mack, filed this lawsuit claiming he was deprived of his mother's care and protection. Torres, who is 32 years old, alleges his mother was tortured at the hands of Heuermann. The lawsuit also seeks compensation for money Heuermann's ex-wife and daughter have earned from a Peacock documentary detailing Heuermann's life, saying they showed callous disregard for the victims' families. We spoke to Torres' family, as well as a lawyer, as well as the attorney representing Asa Ellerup, Heuermann's ex-wife, and daughter Victoria.
Our hope was that there would be, from the guilty plea, we would be able to quickly establish liability on the part of at least Rex Heuermann and in murdering this woman, and then we would be able to get to the damages phase of the case very quickly, which is necessary to stop the financial dissipation of whatever assets remain in the hands of Victoria Heuermann and Asa Ellerup, the wife, and whoever else has these monies.
My clients have fully cooperated with law enforcement from the very beginning. There is no evidence that implicates them in any way. None. The lawsuit is reckless, irresponsible, and completely unsupported by the facts in this case. This case has been thoroughly...
Karen Vergata. She was a 34-year-old from Manhattan who disappeared back in 1996 and was believed to have been working as an escort. Heuermann is expected to plead guilty to the murders of 7 women. Vergata's murder will now be included, making it for a total of 8 women. Meanwhile, ahead of tomorrow's pivotal court appearance, the son of victim Valerie Mack filed a wrongful death lawsuit in this case. Here's Long Island reporter Kristen McNally.
Rex Heuermann, the suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer, is expected to admit to an 8th murder at his court appearance tomorrow, according to multiple sources. They say he will admit to killing Karen Vergata, who went missing in 1996. Vergata for many years was referred to as Fire Island Jane Doe because her legs and feet were found on the bay side of Fire Island in April of 1996. 15 years later, additional remains of hers were found at Tobay Beach, according to investigators.
And also with Karen Vergata, remember the witness statement of the lady on Valentine's Day, went to a swingers bar with a police officer, went back to Rex's home with Karen Vergata, and Karen Vergata was screaming for her life in the window, and they just drove off. And Rex Heuermann's wife was there at the time as well. That's why she's trying to come out now and say, I'm innocent, I'm this. But at the same time, she mustn't be, because he's admitting to Karen Vergata and she was there present.
Investigators. Heuermann's alleged killing spree spans from 1993 through 2010, and he has maintained his innocence since his arrest in July of 2023. District Attorney Ray Tierney posted on social media on Tuesday saying there would be a major development in the Gilgo Beach homicide investigation. This, says Benjamin Torres, the son of Valerie Mack, another one of the alleged victims, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Rex Heuermann and his family.
Anybody who's ever lived in a home with a family, especially a tiny little home like that, is not going to tell me or anybody else that if those slaughters were taking place in the basement, that noises, smells, stains, and the like would not have been noticed.
Valerie Mack, he's representing the son of Valerie Mack, was killed, or the homicide happened someplace in the spring or summer of 2000. Victoria Heuermann was 3 years old. How anybody could stretch a lawsuit, the factual pattern, to fit any kind of liability on a 3-year-old is beyond me. It's reckless, it's irresponsible, and it borders on malpractice.
Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, will be here outside of their home along with her attorney and their daughter to provide additional information this evening. That is the latest from Massapequa Park. Kristen McNally, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
What are you gonna do to me? What are you gonna do to me? Stop him! Get him out of here.
After that call, she disappeared. About 7 months later, while looking for Gilbert, police found the bodies of 4 other women near Gilgo Beach. They became known as the Gilgo 4. 6 months later, in May of 2011, investigators found 6 more sets of remains in that area, many of them women who had worked as escorts, but one of the more baffling discoveries was the body of a toddler. Law enforcement later found the child's mother's remains. They confirmed their link using DNA. And then police found Gilbert's remains in that December. Now, the case went cold for more than a decade. So in February of 2022, the local police and district attorney created a new task force to investigate this case. Those efforts ended up paying off. In July of 2023, police arrested Rex Heuermann, an architect who lived on Long Island. At the time, he was arraigned and ultimately pleaded not guilty to charges that he killed 7 women. Court documents, though, revealed that it was actually this pizza crust that ultimately linked Heuermann to the crimes. Police had been tailing him based in part on evidence that a car he owned matched one that a witness had described. When he threw out that pizza box in Midtown Manhattan in 2023, investigators tested it, and they said that the DNA was consistent with the DNA of a man's hair that was discovered on one of the victim's remains. After Heuermann's arrest, investigators spent days searching through his home, digging through his yard, ended up removing numerous guns from inside the house. It's not clear what the terms of Heuermann's potentially updated plea agreement would be, if any have been agreed upon, but we're definitely going to stay on this story and have any of those details for you.
Yeah, I was there on that day in 2023. Jared, just incredible investigative work.
Why is he pleading guilty now to these charges after fighting them for years?
Well, Todd, I think it's very clear the walls were just narrowing in on this case. If you look at this, it was entirely built on modern DNA evidence. And as prosecutors have said, a blueprint of cell phone, burner phones, computer files that were continuing to show that the defendant was likely guilty. So instead of having a separate indictment and instead of going through an additional trial, this was the best case scenario so that the defendant and his team could control the legal narrative. That's the only reason you plead now after these many years and this much fighting against the evidence.
Okay, but what about the victims? Can the victims' families get justice without any public accounting for these crimes, which one would get in a trial?
Todd, that is the hardest part about this. Anytime you have a plea deal, there's closure in terms of the legality, there's finality, you're going to see sentencing. But victims' families never really know what happened to their loved ones. There's no finality, and the emotional strain that families go through, because at the end of the day, the defense team and the defendant are going to have the upper hand. That's the hardest part. I don't see a lot of closure for many of these victims. And remember, there's still a lot of unaccounted murders for, and we're never going to find out what really happened unless this defendant comes forward and pleads and gives a statement to the court about why. And that's what families want today, closure.
Unreal. The fact that, to your point, Mehek, there could be others out there that we don't yet know about, and that is chilling. Speaking of chilling, a nurse accused of murdering her 3 children and then jumping out of a window, paralyzing herself, is reportedly willing
with yes media, but also podcasters and interested public. The next situation, very composed, battered the questions toward him. Did you?
News. A major twist in a case we've been following for decades. Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann has changed his plea.
Just moments ago, Heuermann pleading guilty to 7 counts of murder. He evaded arrest for more than 30 years, living a seemingly normal life in Massapequa Park, Long Island, commuting to Midtown, where he worked as an architect. Online search history and DNA evidence from a discarded pizza box led to his arrest back in July of 2023. Now, he was initially charged with the murders of 3 women, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, later charged with the murders of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Sandra Costello, Jessica Taylor, and Valerie Mack.
And up until today, he's pleaded not guilty to all the charges against him. Today in court, Heuermann admitted to killing another woman, Karen Vergata. He will be sentenced on June 17th.
Now, the plea marks a significant shift in a case that's gripped Long Island and drawn national attention for over a decade.
Jennifer McLogan has covered this case for years, has the latest from court. Jennifer.
Good afternoon. This is huge, a case that has haunted Long Island since the bodies of the first so-called Gilgo 4 were discovered on Ocean Parkway back in 2010, wrapped in burlap in a shallow grave. We have some resolution. On the 4th floor of this criminal courthouse behind me, Rex Heuermann, the Massapequa Park architect living a double life, admitted to all 7 murders that he was charged in, plus an 8th that he was suspected of. This is saving victims' families from the trauma of listening to all this and taxpayers from a long, protracted trial. Now, he entered court. He was no longer on crutches. He sounded matter-of-fact and even confident when questioned by the judge. He gave his name. He identified himself. He leaned over a little tiny bit. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. I am Rex Heuermann. I am now 62 years old, etc. It was really chilling as the district attorney, very composed, battered the questions toward him. Did you do this? Did you do this? Yes, yes, guilty, guilty. All 7 people. Now, just to set the scene in the courtroom, it was standing room only. The courtroom was packed. There were 24 family members. You could hear a pin drop. It was very tense. We had 2 overflow courtrooms, court officers everywhere, overflow courtrooms filled with, yes, media, but also podcasters and interested public. The next situation right now, my colleague Carolyn Gustoff is up there gathering sound because Rex Heuermann's ex-wife, Asa Ellerup, who wanted to hear her husband claim he was guilty, she never believed it, will speak. She will read a statement. Her attorney will answer questions. The defense attorney for Rex Heuermann will answer questions. And then this afternoon, hundreds of reporters and photographers who are here will then travel westbound to Brentwood, Long Island, where the district attorney will hold a long press conference detailing everything, and we will be able to hear from the family members caught up in this tragedy. And obviously, yesterday afternoon, we're aware that one of the family members' children, this is the son of Valerie Mack, filed a lawsuit against Asa Ellerup and her daughter, Victoria Heuermann, claiming they must have known about this, and because they have participated in documentaries in which they were paid, that they have ample funds now to answer this wrongful death lawsuit. Chris, Cindy?
Jennifer, having covered this case for so many years and seeing Rex Heuermann since he was apprehended, of course not plead guilty like he did today, to see this seismic shift in this case that has garnered such national attention for so many years, I guess, if you could, were there audible gasps in the courtroom from the family members that were there? We talked about his ex-wife, wanting to hear it from his mouth that he was guilty, never really fully believing that he was responsible for this. Take me through some of those elements, if you would.
Audible gasps for sure, quiet sobbing, no outbursts that we heard. But this was the first time we heard Rex Heuermann's voice. And I mentioned before that he sounded matter of fact and confident, but he's missing teeth. And he never wanted to open his mouth at all. And you could hear him sort of lisping, yes, Your Honor, you would hear as he came through. No longer this kind of arrogant big bully. He looked more, like a timid has-been. Why did he do it? Now that's the big question. Hopefully in the next few hours we'll get more of those answers. But was it to spare his wife and daughter and stepson? We don't know. Is it that he didn't want all of those shameful, sadistic details to come out from his manifesto that he'd written? They were going to go through those hook, line, and sinker and show what a brutal, sadistic killer he was? Or was he just wanting to get out of solitary confinement and thinking that maybe prison will be best for him? Of course, the judge at the end said sentencing will be laid out at a future date, and he will be receiving life in prison with no possibility of parole.
Hey, Jennifer, you and Carolyn have been covering this case for so long. I'm just wondering, when you heard that he was going to plead guilty, what was your reaction?
It was just stunning because originally when we were privy to that shocking day of his arrest, where no one expected that at all, he kept maintaining through his attorneys, no, he wanted to go to trial. And we kind of thought that he loved the attention, and why wouldn't he want to go through with it? So it was a little curious. We thought maybe it was health reasons or, as we said, privacy reasons. We don't know, but it was definitely a big surprise when he decided not to go through because the trial was to begin in September. They had the dates all set. All of the discovery had been gone through. And, as we said before, it's saving taxpayers from a huge protracted trial, and obviously his family, all of those, his family, and then all of those victims' families. And we know that there were 10 bodies that were discovered, but 8 of those have been linked to him, and we still have 2 of those Gilgo Beach cold cases that are still out there in the wind, as they say.
All right, Jennifer, stay with us. We're going to come back to you and Carolyn Gussoff, who's there on site with you in just a couple of moments. We just want to show...
There's allegations. First and foremost, our hearts are with the victims and their families. They have endured unimaginable loss, and nothing said here today can ease that pain. But let me be absolutely clear, and I want to say this without ambiguity. Mrs. Ellerup and Victoria Heuermann had no knowledge, no involvement in, no connection whatsoever to these horrific crimes. None. I would like to add, Victoria Heuermann was 3 years old. She was 3 years old at the time of the homicide of Valerie Mack.
Big news has just dropped about...
Mr. Ray accuses her of active participation in a homicide where she was 3 years old. Just take that into consideration on the reckless acts that were brought by this. The individual responsible acted alone. Rex Heuermann has been indicted and charged with these series of homicides, and he will have his day in court to answer for those charges, which we all know will be tomorrow morning. My clients have fully cooperated with law enforcement from the very beginning. There is no evidence that implicates them in any way. None. Unfortunately, there has now been a civil lawsuit filed that attempts to suggest otherwise. The lawsuit is reckless, irresponsible, and completely unsupported by the facts in this case. This case has been thoroughly investigated by the Gilgo Beach Task Force. My clients have cooperated during that investigation from minute one, right in front of this house in the command center post that was put out here the minute Rex Heuermann was arrested. It is deeply troubling in the wake of such tragedy that anyone would choose to advance claims that have no factual basis only to serve to further harm individuals who themselves are dealing with profound personal human trauma. My clients are trying to process the reality that someone they trusted, a husband, a father, is accused of committing unthinkable acts. They are victims in this situation as well, not perpetrators. We ask for restraint, fairness, and for the media and the public to focus on the pursuit of justice for the victims rather than amplifying unfounded, reckless allegations. There will be a time and a place to address the claims through the legal system in that process, and we plan on doing that. But today, let me be absolutely clear. They have absolutely no involvement in the actions of Rex Heuermann, and we look to be fully exonerated in this reckless lawsuit brought by John Ray. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Sources are telling us that Rex is going to plead guilty to murdering 8 people tomorrow. Your client's reaction to knowing that he's going to be admitting to these murders?
Until tomorrow morning, we don't know what's going to happen in the courtroom. That's between, Rex Heuermann, his attorneys, and the district attorney's office. I'm not going to comment on any of that, any speculation on what's going to happen tomorrow.
Has Rex had any conversations with Asa ahead of tomorrow's possible plea?
He has, but again, I'm not going to discuss those conversations. So the family is prepared for whatever's going to happen tomorrow in court. They have, had conversations, with Rex over the past, several months. So they are prepared for whatever outcome is going to happen in court tomorrow.
Have they allowed him to plead guilty?
They have not been involved in the decision-making of Rex, one way or another.
There's been a lot of news about them making money off of this documentary. Peacock is here. What do you say to that?
I say this is America. People are entitled to, whatever they are entitled to do. This is nothing about Rex Heuermann. This is about Asa's life and her process through this, Victoria's life and her process through this whole thing. There's no comment other than that.
Would Asa like to comment at all directly?
No, she will not.
And is there any? Can you go offer any insight into why Rex may have changed his decision about a guilty plea? Has that been shared with the family about the reason?
That's between Rex and his legal team. We are not part of any decision-making process that took place on why or if he's going to change his plea.
How have you prepared? Is this a relief? Is this a relief for your clients? What's happening tomorrow?
My clients have been living a nightmare for the past 3 years. July 13th, 2023, their home was turned upside down. They were removed from it for 13 days. Every one of their personal items was removed, many of which we don't have back yet, wallets, passports. And then again, about a year later, they were removed for 5 more days. And again, everything searched, personal property, all their clothes, all their bedding, everything was taken. So they're looking to move on, whatever that's going to be, and put some closure to this. But again, the focus is on the victims and their families. They have been victimized. Ultimately, they will be okay. But we want to remain the focus where it is on the victims and their families.
Is the family planning to stay in the home? Or planning to stay on the home?
We're in the problem. We'll make that decision once the conclusion of the case comes.
Bob, how have you prepared your client to sit in court and hear those words that we've been told is going to happen? This is a dramatic change from the not guilty insistence for all this time. If he does in fact plead guilty to these crimes, how do you prepare your client to hear those words publicly?
Well, she's prepared to hear whatever's going to come out in the courtroom tomorrow. And we've been consistent. She has never said that Rex Heuermann is not guilty. She's been consistent saying the man that she was married to, the Rex Heuermann she knows, she did not believe was capable of these crimes. Just like the next door neighbor, you wouldn't want to believe the neighbor is capable of these crimes. They're horrific allegations. Nobody would want to believe it. She's now had almost 3 years to process that, and she is prepared for whatever outcome is going to happen in court tomorrow, and she will deal with it.
But it's 3 decades in a very small living space. Were there any signs?
Ma'am, I have the full trust and faith in the Gilgo Beach Task Force, who has thoroughly investigated this case. My clients have cooperated from minute one. They have no involvement whatsoever. They have been clear in all the court filings. Asa and Victoria were not in the jurisdiction when these homicides took place, whether they were in Iceland, whether they were in New Jersey, whether they were in Vermont.
If you need full dentures but can't deal with the endless expensive dentist visits, you need to see...
They were not here. And if you look at the prosecution's case, Rex Heuermann was particular in the homicides were performed or committed when they were out of the jurisdiction. No involvement whatsoever. I have no doubt in that.
Yes,
yes, Jimmy.
So we understand Peacock's here and doing interviews. I mean, is there any way
Asa gave us one statement despite these interviews through Peacock. We would like to hear, the public media would like to hear a statement from Asa.
There'll be an appropriate time. There still has a prosecution of a criminal case pending. There's still, until the criminal case is closed, they are not going to comment on this investigation at all.
Is the family anticipating additional civil, obviously additional victims? Do you expect additional civil litigation to come?
I don't anticipate, but I am confident. They have no involvement whatsoever, and any civil case that's brought is going to be reckless and will be dismissed. Anybody else?
Have you had any direct contact with John Ray since that was filed? Have you had a response to him, or you just wait?
No, I'm just going to wait. I mean, honestly, Johnny has spent, like I said, the better part of a decade trying to remain relevant in this case. He has one client that he's had, Shannon Gilbert, who, fortunately or unfortunately for Miss Gilbert's passing, the other victims may have never been discovered. And he has tried to latch onto this case. He has spent tens of thousands of dollars of his own money investigating and trying to pursue some type of civil remedy against anybody that could recoup his own costs. So I have not had a conversation with John Ray. We'll address John Ray in court where it's appropriate. And frankly, we're looking into the possibility of even bringing John Ray as a defendant because of his reckless, vicious attacks on my clients through his numerous press conferences and allegations that he's made against them. So John Ray may find himself as a civil defendant one day in this whole action.
All right, plans after tomorrow's court proceedings? Is she going to go?
We'll have an additional statement to make tomorrow after the court proceeding, which will address whatever's going to go on tomorrow morning in court.
And does she have plans to go and visit Rex in jail?
We're not going to discuss that now. It's not going to discuss any of that right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Cookies? She gets the best cookies, I'm just saying.
It's not, it's a Christmas. I can't believe I made it.
Okay, we good? Thank you. Try and go back in. Thank you, everybody.
The infamous Gilgo Beach murders is expected in court to change his plea to guilty, according to a source familiar with the matter. Rex Heuermann is accused of killing 7 women and discarding their remains in a remote stretch of Long Island over nearly 2 decades.
I think that the victims' families are, eager to see this case come to a conclusion, but obviously they're really concerned that what they deem to be the proper result occur.
The Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney says they're still looking at unsolved cases.
Even when this case is over, we're going to continue to investigate.
Heuermann, a New York City architect and married father of 2, went undetected for decades. He was arrested in 2023 after a task force re-examined the case. Investigators say they caught him by using witness descriptions, phone data, and DNA from a pizza crust he threw out. When they searched his Massapequa Park home, they discovered nearly 280 guns and disturbing writings they believe he used to plan out his kills. According to court documents, those writings included the letters TRG, which prosecutors believe stand for target, with Heuermann specifying small is good. Under body prep, he reminded himself to remove trace evidence like hair. Investigators say they found hair linked to Heuermann on most of the victims. Chilling details that have generated national interest in the case and sparked documentaries, including one featuring his family.
I would need to hear it from Rex, face to face, that he killed these girls, for me to believe it.
Heuermann's now ex-wife and daughter are expected in court today.
She has never said that Rex Heuermann is not guilty. She's been consistent saying the man that she was married to, the Rex Heuermann she knows, she did not believe was capable of these crimes.
And in the latest legal twist, one of the victim's sons has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Rex Heuermann, but also his ex-wife and daughter, alleging they must have known or should have known what was going on over all of those years. The women's lawyers have pushed back, saying they too are victims, as so many eyes are on this courthouse, with the possibility to hear from Heuermann himself today. Savannah?
All right, Emily, we'll be watching. Thank you.
7 counts that were levied against him with an audible lisp due to missing his teeth. Again, this is just a case that has been such a huge question mark for so many families, for so many law enforcement officials.
I think he could admit to a lot more if he really wanted. And I wasn't expecting Karen Vergotta. But the fact is, Shannon Gilbert was in 2010. You know, I know that Victoria Heuermann would have been 13, something like that. Now, I want to know, is he going to admit to this? Is it to do with him? Let's see what the day brings today, anyways.
For so many years now, finally hearing from the guilty party himself, guilty to these 7 murders and admitting to an 8th. And we will, of course, have more on that coming up as well.
And we saw the transcript from what was going on, from the questions and how Rex Heuermann answered, and to go through each person.
His MO for each of these.
And also, you know, how he did it. And he said strangulation for many of those cases.
As you can see, we've got 2 experts with us to break down this case even further. Roddy Harrison, the former commissioner from Suffolk County, who has a very big role to discuss in this. We thank you for being here.
And for legal analysis, we're joined by trial attorney Rich Schoenstein. Thank you for being here.
Roddy, let me ask you this. We were talking about this before. When you became commissioner in Suffolk County, you said was job 1 to bring this case back to the forefront and get some answers for these families, and now this comes to fruition right now. Let me ask you what you're feeling, knowing that this man has now pleaded guilty to these murders.
Yeah, so it is a little bit of a emotional satisfaction, a bittersweet moment. You know, one of the difficulties in a situation like this is you don't get to bring the family members that have lost a loved one to the individual that was killed, and that's where the difficulty comes in. But being able to bring some type of comfort, knowing that this case is behind him, knowing that he will never see the day of light again. He'll be behind bars for the rest of his life. There's a level of gratification.
Yeah.
It's good to see that the creation of the task force was able to accomplish this goal and bring an individual to justice.
And what do you think the break in the case was? Because we think the first disappearance happened in 1993. Yeah. We don't have a person of interest until you came on board and we had a task force. What was the break?
You know, there was an investigator that was assigned to the state police that really did a phenomenal job. You know, she actually went through the case files. I identified one of the roommates of one of the victims, Amber Costello, and did a little bit more of an engagement. Once we were able to learn that one of the clients was an individual that drove a green Avalanche. They had access to a database that Suffolk County did not have, and they were able to put the pieces of the puzzle together and take a look at, are there anybody that resides in either Massapequa or Central Manhattan that has a green Avalanche? And she was able to attach it to Rex Heuermann, and that was the case. That was the part of the case that really got us going forward with who Rex Heuermann was.
So when you get that information and you say to yourself, when you do the background and you look at this man, he's an architect in Manhattan. I mean, how do you draw the two? And what was it like that day when you were able to finally narrow it down due to the DNA and say, this is our guy, and that day when you decided to go and get him?
So just take a look at prior serial cases. Serial killers come in all shapes and sizes. There's no actual way of taking a look at somebody and saying, hey, yeah, that person's a serial killer. So that's one thing we got to take in consideration here. Regarding the process of getting to a point, to getting to an indictment, my partnership with Ray Turney, the district attorney out there, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, everything from subpoenas to getting DNA matches, reaching out to the lab to make sure that everything was in place to go through a judicial process to put Rex Heuermann in the corner, allowed us an opportunity to say today, checkmate.
Rich, I want to switch to you. So we now know sentencing is going to be in June, many life sentences. Where do we go from here? And do you think any other civil cases are going to come forward? Like, Valerie Mack's son trying to go after the wife and the daughter.
Well, let me take those questions in order. So, to cut to the chase, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. There's no question about that. He's going to have multiple life sentences without opportunity of parole and probably additional sentences of 25 years to life. And they're going to run consecutively, not concurrently. He is never getting out of jail. So there will be sentencing proceedings. There may be an opportunity to hear from the families of the victims, which we do in that process, but it's not going to matter much. He is in jail for the rest of his life. There will be civil litigation. There is civil litigation. There was a suit filed the other day on behalf of one of the victims. They're going to try to get at, I don't know if he has any assets, but there's some speculation that his ex-wife may have some kind of rights deal and may have some assets coming to her. So they're going to try to bring her into this proceeding. And usually when the criminal proceedings come to a conclusion, that's the time for civil proceedings to go forward.
There was some talk reportedly of some six-figure funds for both the mother and the daughter due to a documentary that they participated in. Let me talk about the eighth woman here that he is admitted to, not charged with 7 counts of murder, but that eighth, we'll still have to wait on that because he hasn't been charged with that murder yet, correct?
Right. I don't think he can technically plead guilty to something that hasn't been charged, but he did admit it in open court under questioning today. And I don't know procedurally if they're going to go ahead and file that charge and convert it to a guilty plea or not. But he has conceded that he murdered these 8 women.
Got it.
Rich, thank you. We want to go back out to the courthouse because Carolyn Gussoff has come out. Carolyn?
Yeah, hi, Cindy.
Can you tell us what happened in court, please?
Yeah, so we just came out. I mean, the mood was very, I would say, anticipatory. Everybody knew what was going to happen. In fact, the judge quipped, that it was like the worst kept secret what was going to happen. And then it was just very rapid fire. District Attorney Ray Tierney himself asked Rex Heuermann a series of questions.
Carolyn, I'm sorry. We have to jump in here real quickly. Rex Heuermann's ex-wife, Asa Ellerup, is speaking right now at the podium. We want to listen into that and her attorney.
They did in solving these crimes.
Thank you.
Well over 3 decades. First and foremost, our hearts are with the victims and their families. They have suffered unimaginable loss, and nothing said here today can lessen that pain. Let me be absolutely clear. We just heard in the courtroom, Rex Heuermann and Rex Heuermann alone is responsible for these horrific crimes. Any suggestion that Asa Ellerup or Victoria Heuermann were involved is irresponsible. They have no knowledge, no involvement, or any connection to these heinous acts. The evidence that's been put in the courtroom simply does not support any other fact pattern. Mrs. Ellerup and Victoria accept today's outcome without question. She and her family have cooperated fully since day one with law enforcement and will continue to respect this legal process as it comes to a conclusion. This situation is deeply personal and profoundly painful for Ms. Ellerup and her family. She never wanted to believe the man she was married to for 27 years, the father of Victoria, would be capable of committing such heinous acts. Like so many others, she is still trying to process what was just revealed inside that courtroom, and she has to remain strong for her family. On behalf of her family, she's asking for privacy, compassion, and understanding as she now navigates these circumstances which nobody could have anticipated a little more than 3 years ago.
It's absolutely bollocks. They didn't know. Any involvement, I would say his wife. And what the hell has she got on?
A little more than 3 years ago. Today is not about Asa. It's not about Victoria. It is about the victims and their families. But we just say
Very, very, very neurotic. No one's thinking of them. But the more you keep putting it out there, the more people are thinking.
have suffered unimaginable losses. And this family will continue in cooperating with the District Attorney's Office and law enforcement in the pursuit of justice wherever it may take us. Any questions?
Can we hear from Asha?
Yeah, no, we surely will hear from Asha, yes. Just want to know, she's not going to answer any questions. She's going to read a statement, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay. She's not going to answer questions. She's going to read a statement that she prepared last night. She's not going to ask any questions.
Can you come to the center back where you are?
Okay, right up. Awesome. Just step up. Slow. Okay.
I can't see her.
You said it.
No questions?
No questions.
My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families. Their loss is immeasurable. And the focus should be on them at this time and moment. I ask that you give some privacy to my family as they navigate through this very difficult time.
Yeah, very sincere.
How did you not see what he was? How did you not see what he had done? You were living with him.
Sir, the District Attorney's Office has thoroughly investigated these crimes, okay? It has been proven.
You were living in the same house with him.
She was away.
What were the
She was
signs?
away each and every occasion. We've answered this 1,000 times, okay? You guys have the bail applications. You have the investigation. Yeah, that's it.
That says everything. Everything. She did know.
There's no questions, okay? Thank you.
There's no questions being asked, Paul. None. They're not answering questions.
As you can see, Heuermann's attorney stepping in, not allowing her to answer any questions. It looked at first as though she may, but he was quick to quell that. We'll bring our guest back in. Rich, let me ask you, you're hearing from that attorney right there. If you had to grade how he's handling this so far for his client, what would you say?
Well, I would give him good grades. There's no way she should be answering questions. She's just been named in civil litigation. So she gave a very short statement expressing her thoughts and prayers for the victims and their families. That's fully appropriate. She should.
Knowing what her husband was doing, God willing, we'll find out down the road. But the one thing that I will share is the investigation is not over. The task force still needs to stay intact. You have to take a closer look. The bodies started missing in 1993 to 2010. Were there other individuals that we have not discovered that we need to be able to
I agree with him.
identify and hold them accountable as well? So a lot more work needs to be done. Was she part of it? Time will tell, but it's a very, very frustrating situation, but a level of comfort that I'm sure the families of the loved ones who lost their lives so brutally are going to be able to sleep tonight.
Have you spoken with members of the task force that are still actively investigating to see what the next step is?
So I had an opportunity to engage individuals that were part of the task force. They actually moved on, but they still have a say-so regarding what are going to be the next steps. Listen, the district attorney, Ray Attorney, did a good job after the initial arrest, making sure we were able to continue the investigation and attach all of the discovered bodies that were on Ocean Parkway, as well as other locations to Rex Heuermann.
Yeah, so now that he's admitting to an MO of strangulation using burlap and whatnot, do you now go back and just kind of revisit other cold cases that where any type of connection could be made, as you said, to other cases that maybe existed out there?
The investigation's ongoing.
Yeah.
It definitely shouldn't stop. Is he going to be forthcoming and share that, he has committed other acts of violence to other sex workers? Listen, create a stronger task force. Maybe even take a look at going off of Long Island and maybe even making it a statewide task force. Take a look at sex workers that are missing throughout the state and see if they could maybe potentially attach it to him or somebody else who's another copycat that may be doing these types of heinous crimes.
Right, Commissioner, we had been talking earlier, it's not just sex workers' bodies or unnamed, bodies in this area. I mean, it could be throughout the country.
It can be, and yes, also take a look at Rex Heuermann's past. He used to travel down to South Carolina. He had a timeshare out in Nevada, so he might have went up hunting upstate. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a need to follow his path, his trail of where he used to visit, where he used to go, be it recreational or personal, and take a closer look at were there missing sex workers in that vicinity also.
Let me pose this question to both of you of how common it is to see something like this. A man who has basically been defiant in not admitting guilt, but now all of a sudden guilty on all 7, admitting to an 8th. I know we heard from Jennifer before that this is going to spare taxpayer money. It's going to spare some of the families hearing some of the details, but there are also some families that wanted some more answers and that we've already heard from that are not necessarily happy that he's not going to have to admit to see him and actually testify. Is this uncommon for a case like this or a criminal like this to change his mind and just plead guilty?
No, it's not uncommon. We just saw it in the prominent case out in Idaho where that defendant has pled guilty, right? So this happens all the time where there are defendants who face really an insurmountable time at trial and decide to plead guilty. And you were never guaranteed that you would hear from Rex Heuermann. If there had been a trial, he didn't have to testify. It's unimaginable that he would have testified. He wasn't offering an alibi defense or a self-defense defense. So you weren't going to hear from him in any event. You're never going to get a satisfactory explanation as to why a human being would do something like this.
And just very quickly, we don't know what the plea deal was, what's on the table. Very quickly, if you could tell us some things he might have gotten through this.
Yeah, it seems like maybe some of the charges were dropped and there aren't going to be additional charges. I haven't seen the details of the deal and I really want to scrutinize that. Sometimes there can be concessions made about where somebody will be incarcerated or the circumstances of their incarceration.
This was an unprecedented case, and I can tell you that I am very fortunate to have had a legal team that helped me on this over the course of the last 2.5 years. I don't know where Mr. Capone is, and Mr. Fuchs. They are excellent writers, and we battled this from day one, and we were prepared from day one to try this case. Chase Brown has been an excellent help in terms of everything we've been doing. He is a rising star in this county. My co-pilot, Danielle Koish, she really put together that Fry hearing. That was such a monumental hearing here in New York State. And she's organized and came up with such crafty arguments during the course of this case. So I'm really grateful for their help. We really were, in my opinion, zealous. We did our best to be competent and effective during the course of this prosecution and the defense. One of the things that I was very mindful of and made a deliberate point is we attacked the evidence. We never attacked these young ladies, these victims. That was never our objective. We never said a bad word about them, and they ran into some tough times. They were all beautiful young ladies. Their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, I can go on and on. But it was never about attacking them. It was always about attacking the evidence. So I think that this today gave hopefully some peace and some closure to the family members. This case is over from our standpoint. You heard the prosecutor indicate there will be no further prosecutions in exchange for his plea of guilty, as well as his cooperation with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Behavioral Analysis Unit. I respect the press and their role in the criminal justice system, so I'm happy to take some questions to the best that I can at this point.
Was there specific
change and when? That's what we're trying to figure out. Well, I can't give you our conversations that are confidential, but I will say to you that there came a point in this defense where Rex said, I want to plead guilty. And it was at that point when we really had an objective of protecting his interests.
Sure, but can you give us some
I can't. No, because that's all confidential. I'm not going to get into the time frame.
Is he cooperating with the FBI?
I'm sorry?
Has he spoken to Asa?
Has he spoken to Asa? I don't know. You'd have to ask Asa.
Mike, can you talk a little bit about the parameters of the FBI cooperation? Because we couldn't really hear you on the mic well when you mentioned that in court. And what does that mean for a potential federal prosecution of Rex, if at all?
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to discuss any of that. All I can say is he has an obligation to cooperate fully and completely with the Federal Bureau of Investigations Behavioral Analysis Unit. I can't get into anything further. Anybody?
that already begun?
Yes, sir.
This plea comes sometime after the judge ruled on DNA. Was that part of the calculation that there was just another obstacle in the way to try to prove his innocence versus pleading guilty?
Well, we don't have to prove innocence, obviously.
Well,
it's about, but I understand your question. Yeah, I mean, listen, there are a couple of things that were major decisions in this case from a strategic standpoint for the defense, in terms of likelihood of success at trial, so to speak. The judge's ruling on the Fry hearing was monumental. Yes, that's a big deal because if you remember, you have mitochondrial DNA and the statistical likelihood is not that great. I feel like I'm a broken record, but that was 2.5 years ago. We talked about that. But once that nuclear DNA comes into play, those statistics, as portrayed by this expert, the Astrea lab, they're off the charts. So that's a major part of how successful you're going to be at trial. Another major part is our motion to sever, which Ms. Koish wrote a great motion on that because we didn't think, we suggested that the cumulative effect would have been so overwhelming, and the court disagreed with us, and the court permitted all of the counts in the indictment to remain together. That's a big win for the prosecution.
Mr. Brown, you
Yes.
yourself told us many times that you believed he was not the guy. When did your thoughts on that change?
Well, my thoughts aren't important. At some point, he admitted responsibility to us and indicated that he wanted to proceed to trial. So I don't sit there and judge a case. Our objective and our job is to be zealous advocates for the client, right? That's what we do. We do it on every single case. A good lawyer is going to advocate for their client. That's what we've been doing from day one. My beliefs, and it's insignificant.
Mr. Brown,
yes, sir.
The hearing is often, these kinds of hearings are so clinical. Can you give us an understanding of his mindset coming in and whether he, without betraying confidences, may have said something that indicated a particular way he was thinking or feeling about this?
You're talking about this morning?
Yeah.
Well, this is not something that nothing has been done from the hip. We don't shoot from the hip on this case. This case, every single decision we've made has been calculated and thought out, and we've thrown it around hundreds of times. And the reason I say that is, we've been speaking to him and preparing him for today, and that's been ongoing for weeks.
Is he sorry?
I would hope so. I expect at sentencing he'll have something to say. I'll leave it at that.
Was it a sense of relief, you think, for him to admit this tonight?
I do. I think that was a huge sense of relief for him. I'm not in his position, obviously, and I never will be. But when you have that type of in your head and on your body, and I think by admitting it, I think it's cathartic to some extent, sure.
Mike, can we get into more detail about how he did all of this at sentencing?
No.
What does the fact of the DNA evidence not being appealable do for other cases in this state?
I'm going to let Ms. Koish answer that because she really is now an expert on this area.
Yeah, so what we have in this Fry decision is a Supreme Court
just stand a little
decision.
closer.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's a Supreme Court decision. Another Supreme Court justice could hear the same issues and either agree with Judge Mazie or disagree with Judge Mazie. It's not a controlling decision yet, okay? So I assume we're going to hear more. I think that this type of technology, now that the door was open, is going to be used more, and similar legal challenges are going to be raised. And it's up and until we get to the higher courts, what we call the appellate division over in Brooklyn or even our Court of Appeals, does that decision become binding. So Judge Mazie's decision certainly opened the door. We're going to see it, and I'm sure we're going to hear what other Supreme Court justices and other judges in New York think about the case. But as of right now, it's just a door-opening decision.
Mr. Brown, can you just clarify if there was an agreement? He's pleaded guilty to 7 counts. He also acknowledged an 8th murder, right? But then there's something about no future prosecutions. Does that mean if there were other victims found in Suffolk that there would not be prosecutions?
No, there will be no further prosecutions on these 8 victims.
How did the 8th one come about? Like, how did that end up being part of it?
When he decided he wanted to plead guilty, We had that covered as part of his plea, and there'll be no further prosecutions as long as he cooperates with the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Behavioral Analysis Unit.
So is Rex maintaining that he has no other victims out there?
No, he's maintaining he has no other victims other than the 8, correct, yes.
When did Karen Brigada enter the conversation with you?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I don't have the timeline. I can't tell you. Obviously, she came into play. Her as a victim came into play at some point. I can't tell you exactly when.
Weeks, months?
I don't know.
How much was the...
Mr. Brown, could you tell us if his family might have helped him make this decision?
I think that they speak, and I think that there was... I can tell you that... I'll say this. Certainly, several of his concerns, he had many about why he didn't want to go to trial and plead guilty. He certainly wanted to save the families of the victims the ordeal of going to trial, and coupled with saving his family that ordeal. So I know that there was conversations during the course of this defense between his family members and himself in regards to that, yes.
Did he not want his family members, his wife, and his daughter to know the details of the murders that he committed?
I would assume that. I'm sure, again, there was conversations about having them avoid the ordeal of a trial. It was definitely a factor. Yes.
How much of a factor was the federal charge?
Okay, we've been listening to Rex Heuermann's attorney, Michael Brown.